Bill has been with this company a very, very long time, 15 years with the Affiliated Resource Group. Started as a application developer, became a project manager, and look at him now. He's been deploying Microsoft CRM as long as it's been in existence, through all versions. You can tell by the common number of years between the age of our practice and the length of time that Bill's been doing this, that not surprisingly, he was the one who founded our CRM practice and has become very highly regarded nationally and even internationally in the CRM community. He has a very widely followed blog. The URL you can see here will lead you to that blog, and it's consistently updated with the latest information pertaining to CRM, new update information I think would probably be in there, features and functions that are coming in November, I would think. Bill, have you updated it for that?
We've been a little lax.
Okay, well, believe me, it'll be coming shortly after this webinar. As many of you may know, Microsoft recently announced some new feature enhancements that are very exciting, particularly pertaining to social networking and other things that are coming to Microsoft CRM next month. And if you haven't heard about that already, contact me and I can send you some information about it, or you can check the blog shortly.
Thanks, Jim.
So without further ado, well, actually, I'm gonna subject you to a little bit more ado. Sorry about that. I am going to. I don't think I shared those last results there, but I do want to hide that. And I'm going to ask you to do one more poll. Actually, two or three more poll questions. And I want to know if you're a CRM administrator. Again, this will help us to gauge the audience and figure out, how technical folks on this call might be. Boy, the old 80-20 rule sure holds true in many, many instances. Oh, looks like we're leaning a little more heavily toward the admins on the call. So I'll give it, again, 2 more seconds. Close it, share it. You can see there, most of you, if you're a CRM administrator, you're in good company. If you're not, you're going to learn a lot today, and you may be on your way. Along those lines, have you created dialogues yourself? It's a new feature. We're actually a little bit new in adopting it even internally here at Affiliated, so getting to know it well. So many of you may answer no to this question, I would assume.
It's close to 50-50.
Yeah, it looks pretty close to 50-50. I'll give it another 2 seconds. Don't be shy out there if you haven't logged results. You can see there that a large minority, I should say, of folks have created them, but most folks have not. And just indulge me in one more question, and then we will go ahead and get started here. Let me ask this. Last question before we get started, I swear. How long has your system been deployed? Looks like we got it all across the board here, but lots of new folks. So that would account perhaps for the large number of people using CRM 2011. As you may be aware, the online offering has really expanded the user base for CRM, particularly with 2011 in January, the launch of 2011 in January, and I think that probably accounts for the large number of folks who are new to it. But of course, this is sort of a training event, and so that would explain that as well. So okay, I'll get off your backs, and now Bill Owens.
Well, thanks, Jim. It's about time. Hey, no, guys, I joke around a lot. You probably, if you've been on previous meetings with me, you'll realize that too. Now let's go ahead and get into this best practices and get started. First of all, for the large number that were actually on the previous ones, you'll notice consistency here, and that naming convention is the first thing you're going to see me talk about. In no other area will I say that naming conventions are more important than in dialogues. Dialogues will quickly bury you if you don't adopt a naming convention as you're going through it. So you want to be able to, you want to adopt a naming convention as you're going through it, and everybody on this meeting will be getting an email, or you probably have in the past, got this sheet here. Use it, change it around for yourself. We do like you to keep our logo on there, but it is yours to use and change. Now, when we're talking about the naming conventions, the first thing off, use the entity and the description when you name your dialog. And another thing I'm going to be changing on here too is putting the page information when we have it broken apart. And you'll see that a little bit later. But you want to name it and have the entity in it. So for those that were on the last one I had where we were talking about workflows, this looks very familiar. Well, it should, because dialogs are the sibling to workflows. They work side by side together. Matter of fact, you can actually kick off a workflow from a dialog. So they're very much going hand in hand. The one thing you really, and if you take nothing else away from here, this is the one part of the naming convention that you really want to start using. Use your pages. Name your pages. P01 for page 1. Put a description behind it.
Can you elaborate on that? I wasn't familiar with the fact that pages are part of dialogs, and maybe the folks who haven't used it before might.
All right. And that's a good question, Jim. Why am I talking about pages? What is a dialogue? Well, frankly, a dialogue, what happens is you kick it off manually. Like say I'm on a lead and I say kick off the qualification dialogue. It's going to pop up a page with questions on it, Jim. And you'll see the questions. You can ask the question of a person or whatever, and you can actually answer those questions there on the dialogue and hit next. When you hit next, the dialogue kicks off again, and you can actually have branching logic, a decision tree going on. You can have it do other functions like workflow functions behind the scenes. You can take the values that were captured and update data or create new records. So it's very powerful and very exciting. Dialogs is something we've been asking for quite a while, and now having it out here, there's going to be a magnitude. You're going to see a large exponential growth on people using dialogs, because getting into it at first is a little confusing. But once you start getting a little bit more familiar with it and get it under your belt, you will actually see the tremendous value that's behind it. But the thing is each page set of questions is its own separate page, Jim. And the problem is you can have these decision trees going from left to right. You can have a whole bunch of different pages. And if you don't start naming them, it really becomes hard to figure out which one am I using, where am I going. And I'm going to show you that a little bit later on, because the first one I'm going to do is a simple dialogue. And frankly, guys, I'm going to tell you, there's no such thing as a simple dialogue. As soon as you start asking questions, you're going to start asking more questions, and it's going to explode fairly quickly. So the first one I'm going to do is very simple, like getting started on one. And then the second one, I'm going to show you it expanded out and not using my best practices. And I'll show you why it can become very cumbersome. It'll be using some of the best practices, but not all of them. But you'll understand fairly quickly why these naming conventions are very important, especially like on the labels, because the labels get named whatever your question is, but you can have multiple pages, believe it or not, with the same question. Well, then when in your workflow you try to go look it up, you see 3 things named the same thing. You don't know which page that one variable is on. And so it becomes very confusing fairly quickly unless you adopt a naming convention. So we have that. The other thing is queries. It's nice to know that they're coming back and forth. And that's a very powerful thing in Dialogs. It's new. You can actually query using standard advanced find, or for those geeks in the room, the virtual room that is, fetch XML. Very exciting. You can actually pass values into it, so dynamically grab specific information from your system. So one thing you might be able to ask is, what products are you interested in? Then you could actually go query out your knowledge base articles and say which ones are dealing with this. And I mean, you can do quite a few things with it, and it's very powerful. And also you can have input arguments, because one dialogue, just like workflows, you can call one dialogue from another. And I highly recommend you do that quite frequently. And that's the third example I'll be showing today. And that's what I'm talking about, multiple pages, multiple dialogues. Spread these things out and save yourself the hassle. You will have a problem fairly quickly. The other thing too that I'm going to be adding to this thing is, and this should be sort of self-explanatory, flow chart out your dialogues. Figure out what you want, where you want, when you want it, what pages, what's the decision tree going back down before you start trying to code up your dialogues, or you will have some problems. All right? Keep your logic discrete. Again, what I mean by that is if you're on the workflow one, I always told you keep it to the left as possible. So any of the programmers in the virtual room will understand that good practice is to nest your logic correctly and so forth. I'm trying to tell you that best practices here is not to nest if you can at all help it. And the reason being is CRM 2011 workflow, although powerful, dialogues, although powerful, have some limitations on the ability. You can't copy your lines of code around. You can't move your logic around very easily. And so if you have a page or you have an if statement and a page is in the middle of it and you delete your if statement, that whole page and everything you did with it is going to disappear. So, and I'll show you an example where this would become a problem later on in one of my examples. But you want to keep it to the left as much as possible so that way it's easier to insert and do changes to your logic. So let's do a simple dialogue. And again, back to the thing, word simple. There is no such thing as simple because you're going to get into multiple pages fairly quickly. So I'm just going to do this real, basically a start of the more complicated one. My first page is basically the initial question. I wanted to come up, first of all, and say, hello, Mr., Mrs., last name. My name is XYZ, XXX, whatever. We are calling from XYZ company, and we are a blah, blah, blah. What I'm trying to say is this is like a call script for telemarketing, or maybe it's a lead qualification type of call script. So the first thing you usually do is have that little part up the front saying, here's the standard sales pitch to hit with, then start asking your questions. Well, we can actually generate that up fairly easily and have that as the start off of this dialogue. Then we can ask a question. The question I'm going to ask is, do you have a few minutes to discuss Microsoft CRM? If you don't, let's just close this lead as no longer interested and stop the dialogue. Mind you, as you can see, there's going to be more pages behind this, but this is basically creating a very simple dialogue. So let's go ahead and go do that. So I'm going to go flip over to my Microsoft CRM Online, and I'm going to go ahead and go down to Settings. Then I'm going to click on Processes. For those of you from CRM 4.0, you'd say, well, where's my workflows? Well, workflows and dialogues are together now, and it's called Processes. It takes you, sometimes it takes a little bit to find it. So I'm going to go out here to all my processes, and I have some already out here because later on I'm going to walk through some that I've created, but I'm going to do this one from scratch. So I'm going to hit New. This is for a lead, and this is going to be simple question. It's going to be on a lead, and it's going to be a dialogue. Now, again, people have always asked me, why are you putting lead up here when it's actually attached to the entity? When you see the stuff all the time later on, and you see it in your system jobs and so forth, you'll never know what it's attached to unless you put it there. It also gives a way to organize it all together very easily. So that's part of the best practice, put the entity and the name of the dialogue I want to put right here. So I'm going to hit OK for the new one. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring up the dialog page. Now, especially with dialogues, I'm going to take as much room as I can get, so I'm going to make the screen as big as possible. And it's going to start up. So here we go. It's a process. I want this to be on demand. This is my initial one. I want to be able to kick this off manually, so I'll leave that alone. I don't have any inputs or any variables I really need to worry about right now. So I'm going to click on down here and hit Add Step, and I'm going to hit Add Page. This is P01, initial question. All right. This is kind of odd. If you guys have been using workflows, it looks a little bit different. Now I get to do a prompt. So I'm going to hit prompt. And this one I'm going to say, I'm going to ask, well actually this is going to be the initial speech. So I'm just going to call this one speech, talk, whatever. Hit set properties. And inside of here, what we said we were going to do is say that hello, Mr., Mrs., whatever. Hello. And just because I want to speed this up, I'm just going to say full name for right now, or first name, whatever I can get to real quick. I'm just trying to show you that you can put variables in here. Hello, Bill, or whoever. I am calling from yada, yada, and yada. You know, don't think watching me type is what you guys signed up for here. So I'm going to put that up here. So, you know, talk right up here. You can put a tip. We have no responses on this because really what I want them to do is just say this out loud. So I'll hit save and close. Well, we now have created a little part of that screen. Let's go ahead and add another prompt, but this time let's ask a question. Do you have a few minutes to discuss MS CRM? Now my naming conventions tell you to label your fields with whatever page you're on. So what I really want to do is go back over here. Well, first of all, I'm going to just copy this because I really dislike typing. So I'm going to put P01 hyphen, and this is how I'm labeling the field up. And you'll see why this is important in a minute. So I hit set properties, and here is the question. Do you have a few minutes? This is what the user who kicks off this dialog is going to see. But whenever I'm using it inside my workflow, this is how I'm going to reference it. As you can see, putting P01 on all my page 1 variables that are responses are going to be in one spot. Side by side when I go look at for the data, and I'm going to know exactly which variables to use. Now down here, I'm just going to do an option set, have it bring back an integer, define 2 values, no, and yes, hit save and close. So what I've done is said, hey, ask the question, do you have a minute? I have to give a way to capture that response back. In this case, it's a yes, no radio button. Now, inside my logic, if we go back to my wonderful logic here, where's it at? We'll flip it this way. We'll go over to my Visio diagram. I said, if they say no, I want to close the lead as no longer interested. All right, so let's do that. Right after the page, I'm going to click on page so I can put it right afterwards. I'm going to hit add step, say check condition. So if they say if, now look down here on local variables. There's my P01, do you have a few minutes? I know my response is right there. When you have multiple pages, you can see it'll make it easier to find which one you really want to deal with. So if that response value equals 0, or you could do it by the label and say no. If it equals 0, meaning that they don't have a moment, let's click down here, add a step, and we're going to change the status of the lead to no longer interested. The other thing I'm going to do, and this just is my habit, is once I know my logic's done and I want out, even though I know it's going to drop through on this one, I'm still going to say stop dialogue. I want to stop it. I want to force it so there's no accidental logic leaks in the future. If someone comes in and adds something after this, they're not going to get hit by a logic leak. So I'm going to hit stop. I'm going to hit save. Now I'm going to activate. I now have a simple dialog that I can run on leads. So if I go to sales, go to my leads, and let's pick on Paul right now. Paul comes up. And up here at the top, I can hit Start Dialog. There's my simple question right here. I'm just going to double click on it. And Jim, if you'll pay attention here, you'll see the screen comes up with the questions. This is what a page looks like.
Ooh,
hello, Paul.
I like that.
Hello, Paul. I'm calling from yada, yada, yada. This is where you'd have your script generated up. Do you have a few minutes? And if they say yes, nothing's really going to happen. But let's go ahead and hit no right now to see what does happen. I'll hit next down here. They basically told me, hit the road, Jack. So here I go. I say no, and I'm finished. Now, for those of you going, well, I don't see it closing in the background. Well, workflow and dialogues happen in the background on the server. This screen is actually before that in a point in time. But if I hit F5 to refresh, I'll click on my lead right here and I hit F5 to refresh it, you'll notice that it did get closed off. It's now read-only. They're disqualified. If I go to my dialog sessions right here, I can actually pull up the history of my dialog and see what happened. We closed the lead because they answered no. This also will capture off the answers. Their response was no. So it's pretty neat what you can do and capture with the dialogues. And this is a simple one. All right. So with that said, let me go ahead and close this one out. Go back to my settings, to my processes. I'm going to disable that one I just did, the lead simple one, because it's active right now. I'm going to deactivate it right now so it doesn't show up. But the next thing I want to talk about is a more complicated one. And frankly, how does it get more complicated? Well, here we go, 4 pages. First page, this one should look real familiar. It's exactly the same thing that we were just doing. The second page, if they said no, they don't have time, instead of deactivating it, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to actually, if they on the first one they said they don't have time, I'm going to deactivate it. But if they said yes, they do have a moment, I'm going to come to the second page here and ask them, do you currently have CRM installed? If they do, well, first of all, I'm going to update the response in the lead. And then if they do, or in this case do not, if they do not have CRM, I'm going to ask 4 questions. How many users are you looking to have installed? Are you using marketing? Are you using sales? Are you using service? I'm going to update the lead with the answers, and I'm going to assign it to the new CRM salesperson, which is Jim, and I'm going to stop the workflow. Now, on that note, as anybody, the other people here have done workflows, I could have workflow kickoff in the background now, because I might have something in workflow saying, hey, anytime I'm assigned a new lead, send an email to me, or something like that. So, at that point in time, back in workflows on the new lead assignment could kick off and let Jim know he has a new lead right there to take care of. And he always likes those.
Thank you, Bill.
So here we go on that one. But if they say, yes, I do have CRM, I only want to ask 2 questions. Well, actually 3. First question is, how many users are we talking about? Second one, how can we help you be more successful? And then what I wanted to show you was using the query function to go query off all the users in the system and say, and now we typically don't do this, which salesperson would you like to call you back? Then we're going to update the answers in the lead, and we're going to assign the lead to whichever salesperson we chose. So let me go back to lead sample questions 1. Now, once this comes up, don't do the Linda Blair. I know Halloween's almost is over with, and do the head spinning. The thing is what I was trying to say up front is there's no such thing as a simple dialogue, because this is only 4 pages, but it starts adding up fairly quickly. So one of the things I wanted to point out up here is the naming conventions. This is sample questions 1. It's a process. This is the on-demand one. But this little thing up here, this little collapsion, I'll collapse it to get a little bit more room on the screen, because when you're dealing with this stuff, having more room and not to have to scroll so much is a big deal. So this is a good way to get some more real estate back on your screen. So if we look at this, the very first thing I have up here is I always like to put all my queries down right up front. This is my best practice. You may, and it's like every coder has their own standards here. I always like to put all my queries right up front so I know what are my special things I'm going to be using. So if we look at that, it's a query, it's against the users. How does that work? I'm going to hit set properties, and I want to show you how the queries work. It's very simple to get started with it. It's like an advanced find. I want to look for users in the system that are enabled and that are not support users. So the way I got that was just say, give me all my enabled users right here. That works out pretty good, but you can also get ready for the drum roll back there. If you know anything about fetch XML, you can actually pass parameters in here. So you can say, give me every one of them in this business unit. You could actually drop down and say, or maybe the lead had a business unit on it. You could actually pull that information dynamically, put it in here, and just give the list of users for that business unit. So you can get much more powerful selection criteria from your queries by using the parameters inside of here. And it's very powerful, but I need more time than 45 minutes to show you how to do this. So I just want to show you how to get it going, and then we'll show you how to use it. Basically, it's very simple to get it going. Is just do your advanced find. That's the simplest way to use it. So I'm save and close. Come back here, page 1 initial question. My message. My name is XXX, calling from XYZ. We saw how we're going to do that. P01, do you have a few minutes to discuss MS CRM? Now we've seen what this looks like. It's doing that option set with a no, yes response. Then I have down here say, hey, if you're answering this up here is 0, then what I want to do is put that no longer interested, that we just did this a minute ago, and then stop the dialogue, meaning that we're going to disqualify this lead. If you don't have a minute to talk with me, disqualify the lead. Up to this point, this is familiar. Now, here's where the logic drops through. If they said yes, we're going to go over to page 2. Here's where those multiple pages come into play. Page 2, P02, again, naming conventions. Most of the time, most of the time later on, you'll see that you can break up almost every one of these pages in a separate dialogue. I suggest you do that. Sometimes, though, pages will have to be using data from a previous page. So you can have a couple of situations where when you pull out your dialogues into discrete areas, you might have multiple pages being displayed in one dialogue. In this case, we're doing all 4 of them in one. This is not what I say is a best practice to do it this way. I'm trying to show you why it's a bad idea. But anyway, so page 02, I have CRM base. First thing I'm going to do is ask a question. Are you currently using CRM? If you notice, I label it up with what my page number is. That way, right down here, I say update my lead with the answer. If I hit set properties and take a look at this, now I'm presuming you guys know how to use a little bit of workflow and can step through this thing. I'm just showing it to you. I have these dialogue answers that I've customized onto the page of the leads. And so I'm putting the response from P02, are you currently using CRM, right here. So it's going to put my answer into my leads database saying whether or not they have it or do not have CRM. So I'm going to update that. Then I'm going to say, hey, if you have no CRM, go ahead and do page 3. And this is where logic can become a problem, because I have this if statement and I have to bury my page inside this if statement. If I have to move this around anywhere on my logic, or I have to change the if statement logic, I can cause a problem with my page right here. And if I delete this one, if I delete the if statement, everything you see highlighted in blue is going to disappear. That's my entire page. And when you start working with this, you're going to find it takes a few minutes of time to get your pages set up. So I would lost a lot of work if I had to move this around. That's why you're going to want to put it into separate dialogues. But let's run through this real quick. So if they are currently not using CRM, which is the value 0, I'm going to say bring up page 03, which is no CRM, and I'm going to ask them, how many do you have? Basically, how many users are you going to be using? This is the response. One of my best practices is use this. Whatever you're asking a question up here, put it up here as well. That way it's easy for you to understand later which fields you're using. It does get a little verbose. Sometimes it's a little hard to see, but it does help you when you're picking it out. Now, if you look down here, my response type, you have multiple different types of responses. And I'm not doing a lot of the training here, but I'm just trying to show you what I'm doing. I'm getting a single line, which is an integer, and I'm bringing it back. So that's how I'm getting that. These other 3 are just like the first question I had, where it's asking a yes, no question. So they're not too exciting to look at. So I'm going to update my lead with my answer. So I go down here and I check it out. And what you're going to see the number of users go here. Sales, marketing, service. And again, having it labeled with that P03, I know exactly which ones I'm getting, because I'm asking this question in 2 different pages. It's the same question if you have CRM or you do not have CRM. Just slightly different. So that's where you want that naming convention on there. Now, once it's done, I'm going to update the lead. I'm going to assign it to Jim.
Thank you.
Yep, there he goes. And I'm going to stop my workflow. Again, I am done with my logic I want to end. So I'm ending it, so I'm asking no other questions. Then I'm following through it, because basically this if statement is this. So if they don't have CRM, it's going to stop at the end of it, so I know that it's going to drop down here. That's part of the best practices I was talking about, by saying keep your logic to the left. I didn't nest it as a otherwise. I stopped it up here so I can get it down here. That way I can insert above and beyond it very easily and change logic around. So page 4 says, hey, do they have CRM? Ask how many users do they have. And here's a different one. This is going to ask a response text box, like a blob or a memo field type of field back. Hey, in which way can we help you be successful? So it's using multiple lines of text response. Now, this is the real entertaining one. This is using the query that we did before. Which salesperson is this going to be assigned to? I'm using the option set pick list, but down here I say use query CRM data, and I used the query called CRM for users. The naming convention makes it easier because all your queries should be side by side, easy for you to find it. Then on the columns that are put out, I'm just using full name, but we could put title, phone number, but I'm trying to keep it simple and just use the full name. So I'll close out this. I'm going to update the responses. So I have the no response right here. I got carried away and put that to yes. I didn't clear it out. But you see how we're having the responses come on back into the system. Now, then I'm going to update it. And if you look down here for this assign it to the user, I'm actually assigning it to the response that came back. I'm assigning it to a user that was chosen from a page. This is kind of cool because it's really, you can't do this with normal workflows. So let me go ahead and activate this. Close it down. Go over to my leads. Pick on G down here. Go up here, start a dialog. Here's the one we have up there, the one we've been working with, and we're off to the races. So the first thing that comes up, here's the dialog. I want to say, hey, hello, my name is Bill Owens. I'm calling from XYZ company. We saw that. Do you have a few minutes to discuss CRM? Oh, yes, I do. So I'm going to hit next. Do you currently have CRM? No. How many users are you looking to have? 55. Are you using marketing? Yes. Are you using sales? Yes. But we're not using service. Go ahead and hit finish. If you want to see what it was doing, you can actually hit summary and see what it did, by the way. Sort of like workflow. It's kind of nice, but you also see the responses inside of here. So I'm going to hit finish. Now, notice that this is signed. I'm the owner of this one. Let me hit F5 because I believe Jim should be getting this one.
All right.
Oh, look, Jim got it. We also let them know that they don't have CRM installed. They're looking for 55 users for sales, marketing, but no service. Jim will be calling up G pretty quickly here. But that's a simple way of doing it. You know, this isn't what I call best practice because I did one dialog with everything in it. Changing this thing around will become a nightmare later on. If I have to insert logic here and there, I may not be overly excited later when I'm going to do maintenance on it. So what we're going to do is take it, this goes down to that discrete logic. It goes down to multiple pages, multiple dialogues. Let me go out here and disable that one. And I keep saying disable, I mean deactivate. Now here we go. Here is the same logic broken up into 4 different pages. First one is the first question. Let's see how this works. And what you'll find is if you break it down in this way, and the only way to get to this is to use Visio or something up front to diagram all your questions, how you want the logic to flow before you start this up. This is the only one you're going to see right now that's on demand. This is the main one to kick things off. It's asking the page 1 question, do you have a minute? Here, my name is blah, 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 do you have a minute? If they don't have a minute, disqualify, stop it. Otherwise, ask if they use CRM. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link it to a child dialog. And the child dialog, in this case, is the lead samples, question 2, page, do you have CRM? And let me go ahead and activate this one. And we'll go to the next page. The next page. Do you have CRM? If you notice my naming convention I'm putting up here. Lead, sample questions 2, because that's what the main page was. What I'm doing then is putting what are the pages that I'm putting underneath it, behind it. So it's easier for me to understand which ones I need to pick. So this page, do you have CRM? Now when I bring this up, if you remember, I messed up here and forgot to put the page 1 right here, so we'll just go ahead and fix that. I already had page 01 on the other dialog. I always restart my page numbering on every dialog. I may have, in this case, 4 pages, but each one of my dialogues is going to start with page 01. And the reason for that is to keep it distinct inside the dialog that you're dealing with. Okay? So if we look at this, first thing I want you to notice here, this is not on demand. This is as a child process. That's how we were able to run this as a child process. So make this a little bit bigger and take a look at it. This is the CRM base. Do you have CRM installed? Update the lead information. Open the next screen. Here's where I use the else otherwise. I could have put it on the other way, but this works out just fine in this situation. If you are currently not using CRM, open the no CRM dialog. Otherwise, open up has CRM dialog. This is making the logic a lot easier. Matter of fact, makes it easier to run through and look at it just this way. It has the base question right here, page over here, page over here. It looks a little bit more like this when you're dealing with the logic, because you have your question yes, no going down, you break it apart, and it works out pretty easy from that aspect. And that's what this is looking like. This is easier for a programmer or someone else to later on come in and modify. Save and close. And then what we have,
I would have to believe that's pretty important, because you're going to want to change what questions you're asking of your customers and prospects, whether it's a sales scenario or a customer service scenario. So very important.
correct. And here's the kicker on that, Jim. It's a very good thing to say. Having it discreetly, you don't have to go hunt for it in a huge dialogue. You're only changing one spot. And the more logic you have in your dialogue, the slower the screen is to edit. So having it down in these smaller, discrete pieces of information actually makes it easier to find and faster to make changes.
Performance improvement, that's big to adoption. That's big for adoption.
All right.
My favorite topic.
Yeah, I know that's your favorite topic. So now if we look on here, we have page 2, has CRM, no CRM. And the nice thing about this is you can keep the logic to the answers confined to this dialogue. So whatever they asked on this one, I'm going to do it all right down here and be done with that discrete piece of logic. Now in the future, if I have to add more logic in here, so if they have CRM and they answered that they need marketing, maybe we'll want to do a cross-sell to like click dimensions. So now I could add in more information here to prompt more information depending upon what they answer from this page.
Hey, we've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
I'm going to pose them to you directly for the audience.
All right.
The inquirer asks, if you add the Add Comments section at the bottom of the dialogues, where are they recorded? Just in the dialogue, or are they recorded against the entity record?
Well, the comments are actually against the dialogue logs. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to activate these. I want to run through this one real quick here. Oop.
Kenneth, I'm going to get to you next.
All right. All right, I'm going to activate these. Except for that one, I'm going to put the comment area right here. And I think because there's two answers to this one, and I want to make sure I answer both of them because I'm not quite sure which one we're going at. So if I open up this, do you have CRM? There's a couple areas where they're talking about the comments. Did I get the right one? Yep. Do you have CRM? Let's open it up. The question is about the comments, and I'm going to show you on the screen where it's at. So when you're doing this question right here, are we talking about this comment or these comments?
Neil, do you want to elaborate? You can probably type in your answer to that question.
Or are you talking about the comment at the very end of the dialogue when you're asking the question?
It says, no, sorry, when the dialogue is actually asking the question.
All right, so, okay. Because the tip text is here. We'll just put tip info here. I'm just trying to make sure I understood where the comment was at, because I've heard it asked several different ways here. So we'll activate this. Let's go run through this, and I'll show you. That actual comment goes into the dialogue information, log history. Okay?
Dialogue log.
Dialogue log. Say that one fast. All right? So let me go ahead and go back to sales. We'll pick on Robert right here. We'll go hit our dialogue. So this comment. All right, so we'll say yes, we have time. Hit next. yeah, here's my tip information over here. But if I hit my summary, what you're going to do is inside the summary,
actually got a little spinny thing there.
Yeah, well, if I go over my dialogue history, because I have this broken apart, that happened on the first dialogue. And so I'm going to hit the dialogue sessions, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, and I want to see that I have that previous dialogue. My very first page, my very first dialogue was going out there, asking, do you have a minute? And it would be nice if my computer came back here. We'll just continue on while that's going here. Do you currently have CRM installed? We'll hit yes. We're experiencing difficulty with the audio.
Well, I lost my wireless connection. So that, oh, I think we're back. Never mind. Sorry if you experienced a minor delay in the network or the computer audio. I lost my wireless connection. I should know better than to try to do this wirelessly, but anyhow.
The comment keeps going along. And I'm going to assign it to Stephen Jennings. Next. Finish.
Nope, you may have lost yours too. Are you on wirelessly?
Yep. All right. Sorry about that, guys. We had a little hiccup on our network. So here's all my questions that were coming through that we're answering on this one for the dialogues. The nice thing about this is that if you remember, there's 4 different pages, but I only get the logs on the ones that I actually deal with. So it works out pretty good. If I open this one up, here's the comments as they stood for that page. And the nice thing is as you go through them, the comments actually, you build upon them and they carry on over. So you get the comment, okay, I didn't do much more on that one. But when I hit the last one, you're going to notice that I have more extensive comments. Did that answer the question?
I believe so. Let me move on to another one. We've got a couple of questions now.
All right.
You're welcome, Neil. Can you reference response value in child pages in the parent page?
With difficulty. What the question is if I ask a question on page 1 and I kick off a child workflow or child process, can I reference past that? You can pass in values. Okay, and you can retrieve in values. So it gets a little bit more complicated. In that mechanism, a lot of times that's why I was saying it's probably easier to have page 1 and page 2 working side by side in the same dialogue. Unless you have one question and you have to spread it off to 5 or 6 different ones, then what you can do is you can pass in values. That's where you get the pass in variables. And the next release, they've actually added some of the stuff, the variable types that you can pass in.
Okay. You're welcome, Kenneth. And last question for now. What is the argument section for and how is it used?
The argument. Well,
if that requires a little elaboration, we're going to open up the phones in about 5 minutes, and maybe Diane, you can elaborate on your question in just a couple minutes.
The argument section. I'm trying to figure out what we're talking about on that one. You mean these? Oh, input arguments. Those are the input fields. Okay. The input arguments. Those are when you're passing in values. You can pass in values into the dialogue. It gets a little complicated, and more time than I have in these 45 minutes to discuss that one. That's more like the advanced 303 class for dialogues.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other questions?
I think that's it for now.
I want to open up the. Oh, you're up, Jim.
Okay. So I thought I'd close out just if you've attended our first couple sessions, this may be a little bit of rehash for you, but I've got a lot of response on this particular couple of slides, and thought I'd repeat it just for folks who may be new to this series, and that is sort of best practices for CRM adoption, which is a huge issue. Obviously, one that would require more than a couple of slides to resolve in an organization. I wanted to ask one last question, though, because this is particularly relevant for folks who have larger deployments. The question is, how many users do you have on your particular system? This will be helpful for me to sort of understand again, the profile of the audience here. Looks like we got a fairly even I wouldn't say a fairly even distribution, but in the sort of mid-size range here. I'll give it 2 more seconds. If you could respond, that'd be great. I will close and share that. You can see here we've got an audience of, I would call, our core customer base type accounts, 25 to 100 users, a couple that are larger. Thank you very much for sharing that. But anyway, whether you're large or small, we've all had the issue arise of CRM adoption, and I'll throw my own people under the bus here by saying it's particularly difficult with sales folks. Marketing people have a tool that makes their life a lot easier. They'll adopt it pretty easily. Customer service folks are, generally speaking, sitting at a desk all day, and it's not hard to get them to use a new application. Sales people are much more difficult by nature. A lot of times they're away from the office, out in the field. They'd always rather be talking to a customer rather than documenting a conversation with that customer. So that's my 2 cents worth. But in terms of best practices for CRM adoption, I would list them in order this way, and by no means are each of these equally easy to achieve. The first one is a great example of that. Change your culture. That's much easier said than done, as we all know, but it is a key success factor to a successful CRM deployment. Instilling a culture that believes that it's important to document interactions between customers is important in order to convince everybody of the return on investment, the value of time spent documenting who your customers and prospects are and what you have said to them. I should say on more than one occasion, in fact on many occasions, I've come across companies that have self-deployed CRM on the assumption that if they just provided a great tool, the value would be so obvious to the end users that they would be naturally attracted to it. And that is not the case. If you're in a sales role, every salesperson out there has some means by which they are documenting phone numbers, email addresses, who's who has the decision-making authority, and so forth. I've seen it done very commonly in Outlook. I've seen it very commonly done in Excel. I've even seen it done in Word, and I won't name the person in our own organization who does that, but it exists. So they've already got a way to do that, and the important piece is to convince them that the additional, well, I wouldn't even say the additional time spent documenting contact information and activities in CRM. Just a different way of documenting that information by using CRM will pay tremendous benefits to them in the form of greater ability to market to those customers, for example. The best, the best, and perhaps the bluntest way to enforce that sort of thing is to say that if it doesn't exist, if it isn't in CRM, it doesn't exist. If you haven't entered them as your account in CRM, they're not your account. If you haven't entered the opportunity and closed it out and or quoted it through CRM, it doesn't count. That has to happen in order for folks to get paid. Believe me, adoption will occur very quickly once that's done. It's also probably fair to say there'll be a lot of complaining, a little upheaval in between asking that they do that and them actually do that. So that would represent a significant culture shift for many, and I recognize that. Add value. As I mentioned earlier, CRM should not just be a paperless Rolodex for the reason I just described. You should add value by showing them again how they can leverage the information once it's in a digital form, in a collaboration system. It can make their lives easier by making it easier for them to collaborate with engineering or other folks they may need in order to advance a sale and so forth. Leverage your existing tools. That's an obvious advantage for Microsoft CRM because it so heavily leverages the Microsoft Office applications like Outlook and Excel and Word. But also leveraging smartphones by making use of the mobile access to Microsoft CRM, something that I consider to be the least used, very nice function of CRM. It's amazing to me how few companies out there actually make that available or even know it exists to their end users. Make use of that smartphone access. And once Microsoft finally makes Microsoft CRM available on the iPad, which I understand is now coming in the second half of 2012, that'll be more and more apparent to all. And also leverage your existing tool. Integrate with ERP if that's not too high a mountain to climb. If you give salespeople, again, throwing them under the bus, pointing them out, if you give them access to ERP information from a single place, they're going to be more likely to leverage the other parts of CRM. Sell the value to your users. However you sell that value, it needs to be interpreted in the form of greater dollars, greater earning potential for them. That could be because they have greater ability to, well, other people in the organization will have greater ability to make their lives easier, so they're more efficient. Marketing can help drive new prospects toward them, or it'll take away non-revenue generating activities like report creation and so forth. And finally, training. The knowledge that folks gain during the initial deployment and the end user training that they presumably receive degrades over time, especially if there's a lot of turnover in your organization. So it's important to build power users in the organization to train the trainers, so to speak, and also build evangelists so that it's not just IT and management pounding on everybody to use the system in the most appropriate way. It needs to come at a peer level whenever possible. Finally, burn the ships. I use as an example somebody in a Microsoft CRM meeting that I attended not too long ago complaining about the lack of adoption. After a couple questions, it was revealed that that the management of the company was still asking salespeople to compile sales reports and other activity reports in Excel. Well, it's no wonder that the system hasn't been adopted by the users. It hasn't been adopted by management. So in that case, I would recommend, first and foremost, that management adopt CRM by no longer using an external reporting source, in that instance Excel, to generate activity reports. Enter the activities in CRM, enter the account information in CRM, they can get their own reports. Management had not adopted. And so those old systems, those old means by which people are logging activities, tracking account information, and generating other reporting need to be left behind, destroyed, and burned. As you've all heard, if you've attended these sessions previously, we have productized, if you will, our offerings in order to help to drive greater adoption. We do that through regularly scheduled training sessions for our support package customers. We do that through quarterly system review and recommendation for those folks. The occasional system governance engagement, something that's been popular among attendees of this particular webinar series. I've had several folks inquire about that. And that would include an audit of the existing system and recommendations around for policies that surround the CRM system, how frequently it's backed up, security, other related issues. And then a quarterly support block of hours is sort of the hub of our support offerings. Use it as you see fit, but at a discounted rate off of our normal services rate. So that's it for today. I will now press *5 on my phone. I'm sorry, #5. I believe that unmutes.
The leader has unmuted your line.
That unmutes all the lines, and we'll give folks one final opportunity to ask any questions that you may have until we sign off. Going once. Sold. All right. Again, this session was recorded. I will mail it out to, I should say I will mail a link out to each of the folks who have attended today so that you have an opportunity to review this at your own pace. And I want to say thanks again for your attendance.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.